Hey, hey, welcome everyone. Hello, hello. Hey, Curtis, I see you, I saw you.
Mon ami, Alex.
Hey, hey, you were hidden. Hello,
Yes, yes.
everyone. Oh, so we're gonna start right on time in about 1 minute. Hello to everyone I know, and welcome to everyone I don't know. I mean, feel free to reach out after the session so that we can get to know each other. And again, hello to everyone who is arriving right now. Hey, Jose, Heidi. Hello, everyone. Good to see you all. We're going to start very, very soon. Okay, well, I mean, we have no time to waste, so let's start now, right on time. Yes, Curtis. Okay, so today I'm going to share how I trained 300 persons on generative AI using a deck like this one of 50 cards. It's old, and you know what? If you know me, you know that it started with one of my crazy ideas. Okay, so we got back last year. I got a last minute workshop for a loyal client, and what they wanted is to brainstorm Gen AI opportunities, and the workshop was in 3 weeks. Okay, so I thought in my head, what if we use a card deck? That would be great. But the crazy part of that is that saying out loud to my clients, and the problem is they said yes. So, to be honest, I had a fallback plan. You might know the 33A deck, that's another GenAI deck. But as soon as I started my design, I knew it wasn't the right tool for my job. Okay? Too many cards, too text heavy, not fun, and it didn't leverage the kinesthetic learning that I so much like in the cards. So I decided to create my own deck. And oh my God, I'm so glad that I did. From the first minute of the workshop, the people were collaborating and they were super focused on the cards. It worked. So voilà, that's the story behind this deck. Um, but today, I want to tell you about my latest really cool training session that I did in June with these 300 persons from a big company, R&D employees. And I'm going to break down this case study into 4 different parts. So uh, the first thing I'm going to tell you about is how I designed the session for such a large group. There are some specific tricks. And next, I show you the GenAI cards and explain why they are so effective and so powerful. And then we'll get into the GenAI cards and how you combine the GenAI cards with high-tech tools, because for a large group, these high-tech tools, it's a powerful enabler. And finally, I'll share some specific activities that the participants did with the cards. But also, there is the 24-hour offer. For those, you need a little bit of incentive, to listen to the French guy for 40 minutes. So for those who stay until the end, you'll have access to an exclusive, low-cost virtual version of the cards, available only to you. It will be perfect for your digital whiteboard. And then we will have 10 minutes at the end for an official Q&A. The official time for the end of the webinar, if I'm on time, is 55. But you can leave, but you can also stay. I will stop the recording, and then we will have at least 10 minutes for a casual discussion, unrecorded. All right? Important. We are already 44. So please, if you ask question, you can do it anytime using storms. All right. Um, you're gonna have a link in the chat, but you can also scan the QR code with your phone. You enter your name and you're in. If you have one question at any time, you take your phone, you write down your question, you create a card, and you send the card. You have another question, you create another card. All right? So before we dive in, because I know that there is lots of new members today. So I'm Alex. I have facilitated tons of workshops, gray beard, uh, and especially large group workshops. I created a company called Storms in 2012, and Storms is a key component of all my large group workshops. I'm an early adopter of AI for my workshops and for my software Storms. And I share all of that with you, the AI Thinkers Club. So that's speaking of the club, we have our next event that I'd like to talk about. And in July, the next Tinker is the first Tinker that is not organized by me. Thank you, Curtis.
Imagine that. I
Oh,
can't
yeah.
wait.
I don't have anything to do. That's so cool. So, a fun event to share your GPT creations or learn from the others' GPTs. In September, the date has changed, the on-conference format. I, I just love that format. Okay. And by the way, stay tuned. I'm going to work a lot on the next season of the AI Thinkers Club, and I have some exciting news for our next 24-25 season, and I will share that this summer. All right. Do you think we shall start? Shall we start now? Okay, let's do that. So, the first part of the case study, remember, is I'm sharing how I designed the session. And the first thing I do when I design the session is I set clear goals. All right. So when it comes to my GenAI sessions, there are 5 different types of goals. Learning the fundamentals of GenAI, brainstorming opportunities, use case, then prioritizing and developing those ideas into concepts, building low fidelity prototypes, and planning implementations. These are the 5 typical goals. But for this session, the main goal, the client wanted learning. You know that the 300 participants, they had varying level of knowledge about GenAI, and we wanted to even that out. So once I have the goal, I can design a process. And the process is always different. And once I have the process, I can pick the GenAI cards activities, or I can even invent some new card activities. And of course, we are in the real world and you have to consider the constraints. You don't design the same session when you have 10 participants or 300. But really the key learning is that even if the cards are the star of the show, they only come last in my design process. All right, for the 2-hour session, I broke it down into 5 main parts. So this is my macro design. All right. The first thing is that we covered the basic vocabulary and mental models. Second, we moved on to text-to-text prompting. So still the basic, but we get into prompting and we explore all the many things. Only with text-to-text, you can already do a lot of things. Next, we discussed modern AI assistants, which means multimodal capabilities and all the new possibilities that they bring. The fourth part is very important. It's understanding what works and what doesn't work. Sometimes it's the most difficult thing to grasp. And finally, we wrapped up with a quick brainstorming session that they were able to put all the knowledge that they acquired in the previous step to brainstorm some opportunities. But in this context, learning goal, remember, it was more as a way to apply their knowledge than to create actionable plans. Don't forget, it's 2 hours, but it's a lot. So you always have to plan for a great energizer somewhere in the middle of this plan. So this one is a favorite of mine. It's called 123. And as usual, it was super effective. I'm just sorry that I couldn't share. I didn't have the authorization to share the real photo from this specific workshop. So this one is from an old workshop, but it's the same activity. Reach out by DM if you want to know what is the 123. All right, so where are we now? Collaborative learning. So when I design a training, I design using a pattern that is called collaborative learning. Okay, basically, whatever the meeting, the conference, the training, the workshop, there are only 3 major types of interaction in any activity or session. Okay, and these are the basic building blocks that I use in all my designs. So the first one is top down. This is where the main speaker presents information. The second one is bottom up, where the audience gives feedback or ask questions. And the third one is peer-to-peer collaboration, where one participant interacts with another participant. Okay, so now if you look at my own GenAI training, I had to mix and match all the different types of interactions. So I had a lot of material to present. So I had to keep about 50% of the time using slide, but not only slide. Remember, also showing the cards, just like I'm doing right now. And the other thing is, so for some part of the design, I included a significant bit of feedback. This is the red part. And I'm using a digital tool that is called Storms. But the real magic, of course, I'm a facilitator, happens in the collaboration part. And remember, we are talking about collaborative learning. And this is where the participants are using the physical cards to collaborate at their table. You know, it's a collaboration device. It's a collaboration medium, the physical cards. And then to collaborate from one table to another table, well, they are using Storms, the digital tool, to send the ideas from one table to another table. So this is a typical collaborative learning session. And I apply this pattern to each step of my macro design. Let me show you. Let me show you an example. So this is, remember, this is the 5-step design. If we look at the first step, well, I apply this pattern. So the first step is the one on the fundamentals. I deliver content with a few slides, terminology, the mental model for large language models, plus I do a demo with my cards, and then I use, and this is the collaboration part, the green part, I use the GenAI cards. I have vocabulary cards. And the participants have an activity where they need to order these cards from the most general to the most specific, collaborating at their table to find the right answer. And once they have the answer, then I use Storm, this is the red part, to gather all the answers from the tables and display a collective results. So this is my recipe. I mix all the 3 interaction types with the right proportion, and I make sure that the green part is a significant part of the session. All right, now let's have a look at the room setup. Okay, let me show you. Let me show you like that. So what you can see is the photo of the actual room, well, the first floor only. We had 50 tables with 6 people each, forming what I call a circle of discussions. And we could also call them circle of collaboration. So we needed also a facilitation table for me because I had my laptop, I had my card deck, I had to manipulate a lot of things. Of course, as presentation was very important because it was training, not a workshop. Well, we needed multiple screens in the rooms, and I was the only facilitator, but I had two helpers with me with microphones, so I could ask questions to the participants and they could say stuff out loud. And finally, the room had two levels with two mezzanines at separate parts of the room. So it was a bit of a challenge, but hopefully I do a lot of trail running and my training was really handy in this case. But really the key here is having these circles of discussions. And let's zoom in on a table. So each table had 6 people. And I find this is the ideal number for a discussion circle. And we mixed the participants based on their GenAI knowledge level, well, supposed. One trick. No, before, we also had one GenAI card deck for each one of the table. And you'll see that I have a trick because I don't like to put the 50 cards just like that. It's overwhelming. And the other trick, as I told you, I'm using technology with storms. But the trick is that you only allow one phone per table. Okay? Only one person is responsible for submitting the answers and the questions on storms. All the other phones are in the pocket. All right. Uh, by the way, speaking of storms, there is an Easter egg in one of the slides of this presentation. If you find it, you'll win a $200 coupon for the top premium storm subscription. All right. So that's all for the design. And just to remember, as I said, the main goal was learning. So it's a very different session from the one I did previously. I created a macro design with different steps, each one following a collaborative pattern, mixing collaboration, feedback, and presentation interaction modes. We had circles of discussions, and on each one of the table, we had one deck here. We had one phone with storms, and all of that, I was able to create a great learning experience. Okay, let's move on now. Second part of the case study, I'm going to show you the star of the show. I'm going to show you the GenAI cards. So the GenAI cards, I built the game for myself, and the part of the component of the game that I love the most is the math. So it represents a large language models with slots for input, output, external capabilities, and task types. It's great both for learning how a large language model works, and also, well, let me show you that. The cool thing is, you see that you have these different placeholders here. And for each one of the input, for example, I have different types of input. And each one of these input create different possibilities of use case. So by combining the different input, output, by working on the different capabilities, what I can connect to my enterprise servers, and using the framework that I have for the different tasks, by doing all of that, well, you can not only learn how it works, but also brainstorm plenty of opportunities that would be very difficult to think that without that tool. Okay, then you can ask me why cards? Why using cards? Well, because they are super powerful. And you can see that just by looking at that picture. And the physical cards, you see that they are powerful because, first of all, they are kinesthetic, touching and manipulating and giving the cards enhance the learning and idea generation. They are collaborative. Look here, everybody is so focused on the table, on the card. And they are memorable. The cards, contrary to slides, they stay on the table. And it helps the participants to remember and reference the concept later. Um, so that's the GenAI card deck. It has 50 cards covering concepts, input, output, capabilities, dream cards, danger zone cards, best practices. Really, what I like about this deck is that it is flexible. I created about 10 to 12 activities, but really the possibilities are endless. And before we move on, here's a trick I use for large group. With small groups, I distribute the card progressively because I want to keep the element of surprise. With large groups, you cannot do that with 50 tables. So I use envelopes. Each table gets a series of envelopes and open them only when it is needed. So it creates a fun ceremony and it is less overwhelming. But there is one problem. The only problem is that you have to prepare hundreds of envelopes. Quite a fun challenge, and I have to thank my wife for that. Okay, and I have to thank someone else, by the way. Thank you to Chiquita, my little dog, because she was very supportive when we had to sort all the cards after the workshop. All right, that's all about the cards. They're the star of the show, the central part of my collaborative learning design. And wait until the end because there will be a special offering if you want to start simple and at low cost with these cards. But next, you see the little phone here. There is a phone, okay? That's the high-tech tool. So let's talk about high-tech tools. And the first one is, of course, storms that I use for cross-pollination in between the tables. You know that I've been using high-tech tool for in-person workshop for over a decade. And when used properly, they make complex setup very easy to manage. And Storms is something that I created 12 years ago. I won't get into all the details, but it can support two types of interactions. Okay, it can support feedback. I use Storms for quiz and vocabulary and Q&A, and you can use it for collaboration. Okay, for collaboration, it can do brainstorming, it can do prioritization, it can do concept development and stuff like that. So here are a few examples of how I used it. For example, for the first activity, the feedback, I used it for the quiz on the vocabulary. I also used it for asking questions, displaying an insight cloud like that. And you see that there is a lot of questions about hallucination. You click on hallucination and you see all the questions. And for the collaboration part, I use it for brainstorming and also for the risk prioritization. You see that you have this cool multiple criteria feature. Okay, so really the idea is that you have to be very careful and you have to use it the right way with only one phone per table. And then it adds another dimension to the setup. It's fun, it's engaging, there is the cross-pollination benefit, and it's giving the sense of a group because the work happened at the table, but then you see all the tables answering all and you see what they come up with. All right, so that's all for storms. So now let's talk about another high-tech tool that I've been using, OBS. And you see that I really like OBS, even if I've just learned using OBS for about a couple of months or 3 months or 4 months, something like that. So OBS allowed me to show my hands manipulating the cards, adding a kinesthetic touch, and this way I could provide answers and explain concept with the cards. Here you see me explaining what is a context window, which is quite complex to do. And it's much more memorable that way than with slides. Okay. So the only thing, uh, this is the setup I've used. I'm going to send you by email or by message after that so that you don't have to take notes. Just one tip, don't do what I did. Don't use Wi-Fi dependent light because they don't even have a single knob, physical knob, and they relied on Wi-Fi. And 30 minutes before the start of the workshop, I had issues with them. So stick to the hardware I mentioned. So using OBS, I could switch between slides, storms on a mobile phone to explain, a storm's result on another browser, all of that just by pressing a button on my Stream Deck. So in a nutshell, OBS helps you raise the bar and broadcast more than a presentation, but an impressive program. And it's also very pedagogical. It's easier to explain. And all of that, me alone, with just a laptop. So of course, if you are a little less crazy than I am, you might consider having someone to manage that part. Okay, great. On to the last part of the case study. I want to zoom in on some of the table activities just to give you a better feel of what you can do with the cards. So I've picked up 4 different activities from a different part of the session agenda. So there is the AI family, the chart challenge, the risk assessment, and the brainstorming. But again, you can invent your own activities, and I would love if you do that. Okay, first one, the AI family. So I give them 5 cards with terms like machine learning, deep learning, etc. They take the card from the envelopes and they have to order them from most general to most specific. It's simple, but so effective. I mean, you should see the conversations. And then they submit their answer using the quiz on storms, which way I can display the results, and I instantly see which terms are causing the difficulty. Then, and only after they struggled, then I explain. I do it the reverse of the normal way. All right, next one. Next one is also a challenge. I ask them, how is ChatGPT able to produce a chart? And then I let them 10 minutes to find the answer. They model the process using the math, the input, output, and capability cards. Most of them have a nearly good answer, but it's quite wrong at the same time. Most of them really don't know the solution, but it's on purpose. And then I explain. The next activity use the danger zone cards. And you have cards like hallucinations, biases, data privacy, um, anthropomorphism, and stuff like that. Then the participant on the table, they create an impact likelihood matrix and they position the card. Again, kinesthetic, much better to do it with the hands and with the cards. Once they have the result, they input it in storms. And again, I am able to gather all the results from the 50 tables and display a bubble chart with the general opinion from the room. And the final activity is brainstorming. As I show you, they use the math with the different combinations. It triggers some ideas of use case and opportunities on how to use it for their own jobs. And again, I use Storms to collect and display all the use cases live. I don't remember, I think we collected something like 200 opportunities. Really, the key insight for the participant is that at the end of the workshop, they say, wow, we can do so many things with GenAI that we wouldn't have thought only 2 hours ago. All right, so that was very short. We are at the end of the case study. I hope you really enjoyed it. But before we move to the Q&A and also the special offer, I did this a small exercise, a small retrospective myself. So what would be my top 3 key insights and best practices from doing this workshop? And the first one is that room prep is vital. So have a tech checklist, arrive early, robust setup, robust equipment, no fancy Wi-Fi lamps, and important, make sure that you have enough big screens in the room. Second is low-tech and high-tech tools can work hand in hand. Here it was physical cards and storms and use each other where they shine. Okay, when they are combined properly, like only one phone per table, they create a really powerful combination. And third, the power of kinesthetic learning. I was already a big fan, but it's undeniable. Using the cards, the hands-on activities is so effective. Voilà, that's my 3 key insights, and we'll have time for the Q&A shortly. I'm only 2 minutes late, so that's okay. But before that, I have a special exclusive offering to present for those of you who really like to do something with these cards. So I know that not everyone will start teaching GenAI with 300 persons, but everyone can benefit from this card deck. So I have created a resource, but because I'm a totally devious French guy, it's going to be available only for 24 hours. Okay, it's called the virtual pack. Uh, this virtual pack is a simple, low-cost way to start facilitating your own GenAI sessions on a whiteboard. It can be Miro, Mural, FigJam, whatever whiteboard you are using. So it includes everything you need to get started. You have the complete set of cards, more than 50 cards from the GenAI card deck, and you have them as PNG, but also SVG, which is high resolution. You have the getting starting guide, and soon, not ready now, but as soon as I have them, you will get the Miro templates. You will also get the unlimited updates, and if I improve it or add stuff such as templates or guides, you'll get a new pack. One of the things you might think is, oh, I don't have the expertise to use them. Well, it's not true because anyone can get value out of it. If you're starting your GenAI journey, you can brainstorm your own opportunities with the cards. And if you're an AI consultant, well, you can run exclusive virtual training and workshops with them and make a hell lot of money. So this is my gift. Everyone attending this webinar today will get access to a link for 24 hours. It's a temp resource. It will not be available after tomorrow. I've decided to offer it for 29 euros, which I think is very accessible. And you can grab your deck with the QR code below. And I think that Isabelle is going to paste the link if you want to buy it. And trust me, I have so many other things to do. I have absolutely no idea when and if they will be available again. So don't miss the opportunity. All right, so now that I did my little selling sequence, let's go on to the Q&A. So what time is it? Oh, I am early. We have, it's 42, the sessions end until 55. So we have more than 10 minutes for question and answers. And I'm going to have a look at some of the questions that I have in Storms, and you can add some more if you want. Okay, nice question. The first question is, I see that you have some geeks here. The first question is asking the overhead camera that I use, that I'm showing the cards and your hands. So I can show you. Oh. This is the 360 link camera. I really like it, high quality. And you have this, it has different positions, so it can look straight at you, and then it can look a little bit like that, and it can be used like that. So it's very handy. It works very well, and the quality of the image is really good. You can also use it as your standard camera for your everyday meetings. What is your advice on how to use the cards in a, so I'm here, on how to use the cards in a learning session with a non-profit board of directors? Well, I don't know what kind of advice. The person who asked the question, you can unmute yourself if you want, but it would work perfectly with any kind of audience. As I said, the most important thing is knowing what is the goal. Is it to learn about GenAI, or is it to brainstorm some opportunities? Is it a mix of both? And then you're going to pick the right activity to do that. But it can work with any kind of organization and any kind of employees. What do you think are the min and max size for the table? You had 6, but would 3 or 4 work, and would 7, 8 be too many? So what's the sweet spot? So the sweet spot, based on my experience for large group, is always 6. 6 is the perfect number for me. Um, because in 6, I can ask a question to 1, I can ask a question to a trinome, group of 3, and then the circle is 2 group of 3s. They can exchange together. But 4 would be great too. It would work well. 7, 8 would be okay. I've done a lot of workshop with up to 9 person per table. I don't like it, but I can do it. And more than 9, it's a red flag, sorry. So yeah, 6, 7 max, 8, 9 if you really don't have a choice, and then it's way too many, because you will have people who won't do anything with that kind of number. There are ways to overcome that, but we don't have the time to discuss that. You can reach out if you want more. Do you give them permission to use the internet? Okay, so it depends on the time that I have for the session. This one was a very short session. It was only 2 hours. So this is why I didn't do any exercise such as go on ChatGPT and do the prompt, blah, 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 or go in the internet. Okay, so really the instruction was absolutely just manipulate the card and answer on storms. Okay, then I mean, I don't mind if some people are cheating, because it's part of the game to try to understand. I give them an exercise without enough knowledge to do it the right way, because I just want them to struggle to talk to each other. Maybe one person at the table we have a better understanding and will explain to the others. And when I will give the final explanation, they will be able to say, "Hey, I told you that." So all of that creates a great dynamic, and they memorize better when I give the answer. If I give everything, all the content before they do an exercise, they will just think it's easy and they won't memorize it. If this had been a virtual session, what would you have done differently? Okay, so to be honest, the only virtual sessions that I've done with the GenAI card deck right now were in small groups. With big groups, so with small groups, you can use a whiteboard application such as Miro, FigJam, or others, and you can use quite the same design, okay? Except that you do breakout rooms instead of tables, and you use a digital whiteboard instead of the table with the physical cards. If you have more than 30 people, I would consider to do the things very differently, because it's going to start to be a nightmare to have so many people to manage so many cards on and so many place on a whiteboard application. So I think I would do it very differently. Again, it's out of the scope of this meeting, but if I mean, right now there is no, we can create a group of people interested in the best way on how to use GenAI, and I would be more than happy to help you design for specific setup. It's also great for hybrid setup. physical card in the big room, virtual cards in the breakouts for the person who are remote. That would be awesome. What time is it? 48. So we still have a lot of time. Cool. Would you say that your GenAI cards provoke such good brainstorming because it invites a what-if style question? I like this question. For example, what if our output was a movie and not text? And then a light bulb go off because they never imagine a video related to their use case. Yes, exactly that. So for those who know me, you know that I have a background in creative problem solving and in creativity, deliberate creativity. And we use tools that are called forced connections. And this tool, when used in the brainstorming part, is exactly that. You create, by looking at the cards, it triggers a chain of thoughts in the mind, and you think of a use case that you wouldn't have think before. So this is a forced connection, but just by looking at the card and maybe randomly doing some random combination on the mat. So for example, if I show you here, let's say that one activity that we could invent would be take a random output card image. No, this is output here. Take a random input card, take a random task card, and now you have video in, image out, and for an assessment type of task. And I guarantee you, even if I did this combination randomly, you have 6 people at the table, they're going to find 10 use case based on that random combination. So this is exactly what I call forced connection. So how do you measure the success of the session? So it depends on the goal of the session. If it's more brainstorming opportunities and developing concepts, I find it easier to measure because you can have a look at the output, the tangible output that are the cards, the opportunities, and if they are transformed into project by the organization. So that would be easy to measure and to put in place. For the learning part, I think that right now we rely on a feedback form, an assessment, etc. A feedback form, but there is no assessment of the well, at least I didn't do that. I didn't do any assessment of the participants after the session. I think that that's something that could be added, and it might be mandatory for some of our customers. So it's a great question. I have to think about that for the learning part. Maybe we can build a quiz at the end just to check the knowledge. But again, it depends on how much time you have. Okay, speaking of high-tech tools, how often do you let the group use a custom GPT or some other AI tools wrapped in a sandwich format? So this is someone who knows me who asked this question. So the sandwich is one of the best practice that I always speak about, and there is a card for that, is you always start with human, then you do the AI, and then the last layer is human too. So anyway, this would be push their brainstorming further. Yeah, so again, when this session was only 2 hours, so no time for tinkering with ChatGPT. I've done one-day sessions. In these one-day sessions, we have some exercises and activities, and we could totally have them build a custom GPT and use different AI tools. Again, remember, I built each design totally custom, and I pick the activities at the end, and when I need, I invent some new activities. How much time do you spend normalizing the danger zone cards to get common understanding of them before doing the activity? That's a great question, because in fact, what I do is that I introduce the cards way before the activity one by one. For example, when I explain the mental model for a large language model, I explain that the hallucination, because the hallucination is a natural behavior. By definition, an LLM hallucinates. So I explain it right after the beginning, and they have the card on the table since the beginning. So it's still in the head. And I do that for several cards so that when we arrive at the risk assessment, I only have one more or two more cards to explain. For example, last time it was the copyright issue card, danger zone card, which is quite obvious and easy to explain. But anyway, that's how I do it. So 50 tables, 2 mezzanines, how many big screens did you have in the room? So that was my the biggest weakness of what we did and my biggest regret. Not enough screen, not big enough, not qualitative enough. We had several screens in the mezzanines, in the first and second mezzanines, and we had a very large screen in the big room. But I should have advocated for twice the number and twice the size. And normally I know that because I've been doing this job for a decade, but I don't know why I wasn't in control enough on this case. So as usual, this is the key learning from 12 years of working with large groups. If you don't put under control the technique, you're going to have problem for sure. Bigger, smaller, but you're going to have problems. So there is a question of cost, of course, also. Remind us, what is your setup for video and slides? I can show again. I think this is this slide that you want to see. This one. Okay, so you can look at it, but the software is OBS. I've been trained by Said. I can give you the link. He's doing a training very soon. You can use it for virtual sessions like I'm doing right now, by the way, and you can use it for in-person to do this kind of magical stuff. Ha ha ha. Have you delivered? So what time is it? Oh, 55. Okay, so I don't have the time to answer all the other questions. You know what? I'm going to take the time to quickly answer all the other questions. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a small recording and answer the questions so that you get everything, so that we don't miss an important question and you get even more value out of this session. So remember, I'm going to close. It's going to be the official close of the webinar right now. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please send me some feedback, positive or negative. If it's negative, just be gentle and nice with me. I also need some testimonials. If you really like what I do, please send me some testimonials, whatever way you want, by email, on DM, in the comments of this event. And I'll see you into the next webinar. And remember, if you have 10 minutes, so I'm going to close it for 60 seconds. And if you stay, we're going to have a casual discussion. Bye-bye, everybody. See you soon. Next event or in 60 seconds for the casual discussion.